You did not lose me. You traded me for a rat. And now you have nothing. I stood in our small bedroom with a lab report shaking in my hands. The page said 0% probability of paternity. Those words felt like acid. 10 feet away, my 3-month-old daughter breathed soft, and even in her crib, a tiny fist pressed to her cheek. She did not know that one sheet of paper had just cracked my world into sharp pieces. 6 months before that moment, I let my wife talk me into a vasectomy. My name is Michael Carter, and back then I believed my wife, Ashley Reed, had our best interests at heart. She made it sound like common sense. We can barely afford this apartment, Mike, she told me, eyes wide and serious. We need to build our careers first. Maybe we can think about kids in 5 years when life is more stable. I loved her. I trusted her. I wanted to be the kind of man who did the responsible thing. The morning I finally agreed is burned into me. I was at the kitchen table, coffee halfway to my mouth. Ashley stood by the counter, buttering toast. The sunlight came through the window and caught in her auburn hair. She said it like she was talking about the weather. Dr. Harris says it is quick and easy. 20 minutes, and we never have to worry about accidents again. I hesitated and asked, "Are you sure? What if we change our minds?" She finally looked up and said, firm as a judge, "We will not. Trust me on this, Mike. It is best for us." Her phone buzzed on the table. She glanced at the screen and gave a small smile before flipping it face down. I did not think much of it then. Now that little smile feels like a knife between my shoulders. The procedure itself went fine. Dr. Harris was thorough and professional. He told me the success rate was over 99%. He also told me to wait about 3 months for the all clear and to use protection until then. I followed his instructions exactly. I was careful. I was responsible. I was the kind of man who deserved a loyal wife. Ashley played the perfect nurse while I healed. She brought ice packs and pain medicine on schedule. She made my favorite soup. She even took a couple of days off work to keep an eye on me. One night, as I lay there with stitches that still stung, she whispered, "I am so proud of you for doing this. It shows how much you love me." I said, "I would do anything for you," and I meant it. She kissed my forehead and said, "I know you would." Thinking about that now makes my mouth taste like poison. 6 months later, on a Tuesday evening in October, I was at the kitchen table again, going through logistics reports for work. The front door flew open and Ashley rushed in, cheeks flushed like she had run up the stairs. "Mike," she called, voice higher than usual, "you are not going to believe this." She darted into the bathroom. I heard cabinets opening and closing. When she came out, she held a pregnancy test like it was a winning lottery ticket. Her hands shook in a dramatic way. "Look," she said, shoving it toward me. 2 pink lines glowed in the little window. The room tilted. I heard myself say, "That is impossible." The doctor said. She cut in with a quick laugh that sounded forced. "I guess we are that 1%. The procedure must have failed." She wrapped her arms around my neck. I held her because that is what a husband does, but my mind was racing. The timing felt wrong, like a shoe that does not fit, but I pushed that thought away. Medical procedures fail sometimes. It happens. "Are you happy?" she asked, searching my face. I forced a smile and said, "Of course." Surprised, but happy. Even while I said it, a small seed of doubt slid into my gut. Something about her whole performance felt rehearsed, like she had practiced her lines in the mirror. That night my phone buzzed with a text from my sister. "Call me now." My sister's name is Emily Bennett. She works as a paralegal at a family law firm downtown. Emily has a gift for spotting lies. I stepped out onto our balcony so Ashley would not hear me. When Emily picked up, her voice was steady and grim. "Mike, I need you to be completely honest with me. How sure are you that this baby is yours?" The question hit like a punch. "What kind of question is that, Em?" "Of course the baby is mine. Yes, I had a vasectomy 6 months ago. Procedures can fail." "They can," she said, "but they usually do not. And your voice does not sound like a man who just got good news." I looked in through the sliding door. Ashley was in the kitchen wiping the counter that was already clean, glancing at her phone, flipping it face down, glancing again. I did not sleep much after that. I told myself I was being paranoid, that I trusted my wife, that I should be grateful. But in the morning I called the lab. I set up a test. I told myself it was just to quiet the noise in my head. Days later, I stood by that crib with the envelope open in my shaking hands. The report was simple and brutal. 0% probability of paternity. There it was. No long speech. No argument. No scene. Just the truth, printed in black and white. Something cold moved into the space where my heart had been. I thought about the toast, the sunlight, the little smile at her phone, the perfect nurse routine, the 2 pink lines, and the forced laugh about being the 1%. All of it lined up in a straight row now. You did not lose me, Ashley. You traded me for a rat. And now you have nothing. You sound like a man trying to convince yourself, my sister said. I stood on the balcony, watching the city lights blink like little signals from faraway ships. I did not answer right away. Finally, I asked, "What are you getting at, Em?" "I am saying you should get a DNA test," she said. Quietly. Those words hung between us like a heavy tool I did not want to pick up. "I cannot do that to Ashley," I said. "If she is innocent, she will never know I doubted her. And if she is not," Emily let the rest trail off. She did not have to finish it. I ended the call without agreeing to anything, but her warning crawled into my head and made a home there. Over the next few weeks, I watched my wife with new eyes, trying hard not to, failing anyway. Ashley threw herself into baby plans with a cheerfulness that looked almost too smooth. She bought stacks of baby books. She built a big Pinterest board full of paint swatches and crib ideas. She even pushed for a new place. "We will need more room," she said one night while we scrolled through apartment listings. "And a better school district would be smart." I nodded, but something in her eagerness felt like a sales pitch. It was as if she wanted the picture to look perfect, so I would stop asking questions that I had not even voiced. The baby came on a cold morning in February after 18 long hours. I never left Ashley's side. I held her hand, wiped her forehead, and said the usual words husbands say because it is what you do. When the doctor finally placed our daughter in my arms, I felt a flood of love so strong it bent my knees. She was perfect. Tiny fingers, a button nose, a soft shock of dark hair that did not look like mine or Ashley's. "She is beautiful," I whispered, and I meant every syllable. Ashley lay back on the pillow with the tired glow of someone who just finished a hard job. "Look what we made, Mike," she said, proud and breathless. I smiled back, but even in that moment a thin thread of doubt tugged at me. Our daughter's features were striking in a way that did not sit right on either of our faces. Her eyes were an amber color I had never seen in my family tree. 2 weeks later, while Ashley slept and the baby dozed, I made a choice. Hands shaking, I collected a sample for a DNA test as carefully as if I were defusing a bomb. I sealed the envelope, then stood with it over the trash can, ready to drop it in 3 different times. I mailed it instead. The wait was brutal, 15 business days that felt like 15 years. I buried myself in my job managing logistics for a mid-size shipping outfit. I checked route sheets, answered radio calls, and pretended I did not hear the slow tick of the clock in my chest. At lunch, I sat in my work truck and stared at nothing. At night, I lay awake and listened to my daughter breathe, feeling both love and dread at the same time. When the envelope finally arrived, I was on break in the cab of that truck. I stared at my name on the front for a full 5 minutes before I could get the thing open. The line was plain and merciless, 0% probability of paternity. The air went out of me. For a second the world tilted, and I thought I might black out. I did not. Something colder slid into place. The grief hardened, like water turning to ice, and the ice gave me edges to hold. I called Emily right away. "I need to know everything about Jason Miller," I said, skipping any hello. She paused. "Jason from Ashley's office?" "That is the one." "Mike, what did you find?" "Just get me what you can," I said. "Work history, anything public, anything useful." "I will make some calls," she said, voice low. "But be careful. Whatever you are thinking. I am not planning anything." I lied. "I need information." Even as I said it, I knew what I meant to do. I was going to end this the right way, and I was going to end it for both of them. Jason Miller worked at the same logistics company as Ashley, one division over on the freight coordination team. I knew him from holiday parties and summer cookouts. Tall, confident in that easy way that draws a crowd. The kind of grin that pulls people in and makes other men want to set their jaw. He was always friendly with me, clapped me on the back, asked about routes and staffing, made little jokes about married life. "You are a lucky man, Carter," he said more than once. "Ashley is a catch." I used to take that as harmless talk. Now those lines sounded like a private joke at my expense. I started trailing them after work, using the same instincts I used to move trucks without being seen. You learn traffic patterns in this job, what lanes back up, which lights are quick, where you can sit without drawing eyes. It did not take long to confirm what my gut already knew. The third evening I shadowed them. They headed to the Riverside Inn, a cheap motel out near the bypass. I watched from my car as they went into room 237. His hand sat on the small of her back like it had lived there for years. The gesture was familiar, easy, wrong. I took photos. I made sure the timestamps were clear. I kept the GPS tags. The shots were crisp enough to hang in a gallery if shame was a kind of art. I sent them to Emily with a short message, "Start building the case." She called within the hour. "Mike, how long has this been going on?" "I do not know yet," I said, watching the door to 237 like it might confess. "But I am going to find out. What do you need from me?" "Everything," she said. "Phone records if you can get them. Email. Money trails. Anything that shows a pattern." I nodded to no one and kept my eyes on that cheap, painted door. The plan was simple now. Be patient. Collect proof. Let the truth do the damage. "I want a record of everything," I told my sister. "Every time they were together. Every lie they traded. Every cent they spent on each other." "That is going to take time," Emily said. "I have nothing but time." 1 week later she delivered, and it was ugly. She had a stack of screenshots that felt like holding a live wire. Months of explicit messages. Hotel receipts billed to Jason Miller's credit card. Even selfies they took together that were so graphic I had to look away. But the worst piece was a short text thread dated 2 days before Ashley ran out of the bathroom with that positive test. Jason asked if I suspected anything. Ashley wrote back that I was trusting and not very bright, and that the vasectomy had been perfect timing. Jason asked, "What if he wants a DNA test?" Ashley said I would not, because I loved her too much to doubt her. Then she wrote, "If he does, we will handle it." That was the knife twist. I read those messages sitting in my truck outside our building. Through the window, I could see Ashley's shadow move around the kitchen while she made dinner. She was humming to herself, light and easy, like everything in our world was right where it should be. Something inside me burned hot and steady. It was not wild anger. It was a thin, bright beam that cut through metal. I did not move on it that night. Rage can push you to do stupid things. I wanted results, not a scene. Emily put me in touch with her boss, Catherine Doyle, a family law attorney people whisper about in courthouse hallways. Ruthless was the word Emily used. I made an appointment. Catherine spread the printouts across a dark wood desk and walked through them like she was reading a grocery list. "The evidence is strong," she said in a flat voice that somehow calmed me. "We have paternity fraud, adultery, and possibly fraud if she benefited financially from the marriage while concealing another man's child." She tapped the corner of one photo. "We can take this apart on several fronts at the same time: finances, employment, legal exposure, and social standing. By the time we are done, they will wish they had chosen a different hobby." While Catherine talked strategy, Emily handed me one more file. "Jason is up for a major promotion," she said. "Senior logistics coordinator. 30% pay bump and stock options. He needs human resources approval and a spotless disciplinary record." That piece clicked into place like the last bolt on a trailer hitch. I knew exactly where to start. I asked Jason to meet me after hours at one of our construction site trailers. I told him I had something important to discuss about Ashley. He showed up 20 minutes late, swagger turned up to full volume. He slid into the folding chair across from my desk and gave me the same friendly grin he used at company barbecues. "Traffic was a nightmare," he said, stretching like a cat. "So what is up with Ashley? She is not giving you headaches, is she?" I almost laughed. Instead, I opened a manila folder and laid the DNA results on the desk. "Actually, I wanted to talk about your daughter." He blinked. "My what?" I spread more papers between us, printed texts, hotel invoices, photos. "Congratulations," I said in a steady voice. "You are a father." Jason looked at the documents the way a man looks at a snake he just stepped on. His hands shook as he lifted the lab report. He scanned the same line 4 times. "This does not prove anything," he said finally. "DNA labs make mistakes." "Do they?" I asked. "Because this one says 99.97% probability. That means you are the biological father of the child my wife delivered 3 months ago." He half stood, then dropped back into the chair like the floor tilted under him. "Look, Mike, I do not know what you think you know. I know you have been sleeping with my wife for over a year, I said, cutting him off. I know she pushed me into a vasectomy so she could pass off your baby as mine. I know you both laughed about how trusting and stupid I am. I slid one message to the top and read it out loud. He is too trusting and too stupid. Those are her words. You agreed. Color rushed into his face and then drained away. Mike, listen. I never meant for any of this to spin out like this. It just happened. You know how these things can happen. No, I said, quiet but sure. These things do not just happen. People make choices. You chose to crawl into my marriage. She chose to lie about birth control and about the surgery. You both chose to let me bond with a child that is not mine. He swallowed. What do you want? I leaned in a little so he could see I meant every word. I want you to understand that your current life is finished. Tomorrow, I am filing a paternity action that names you as the father. You will pay child support retroactive to the day she was born. You will cover medical bills. You will cover my legal fees. I do not have that kind of money, he whispered. Then you had better figure it out, I said. Because wage garnishment works like clockwork, and your human resources department is very good at clocks. Jason stared at the paper in front of him like it might change if he willed it hard enough. It did not. The evidence did not care about feelings. It did not care about excuses. It just sat there and told the truth. I closed the folder, slid it back to my side of the table, and stood. This is me being polite, I said. Tomorrow, it gets official. Jason tried to bargain one last time. Look, maybe we can work something out. We can keep this quiet. Just between us. I smiled, and it felt every bit as cold as the look Catherine Doyle gives across a courtroom. Jason, this is only the beginning. The next morning, I filed the human resources complaint. Catherine helped me shape every line. We listed the affair, the use of company time and company spaces for personal meetings, the violations of workplace conduct rules, and the misuse of office equipment. I walked in a thick folder. Emails sent on the clock, photos taken in his office after hours, witness statements from co-workers who had seen too much to pretend anymore. Human resources moved fast. Within 48 hours, they sat Jason down for questions. By Friday, the promotion he was counting on was on hold pending investigation. I did not stop there. Emily accidentally let the story slip to a business reporter who covers workplace scandals. The piece landed on the front page of the business section. Local logistics manager under investigation for workplace affair. Competitors passed it around, then clients, then everybody. His professional name went up in smoke overnight. Meanwhile, I played my role, the husband trying to keep it together. When folks at work asked about the baby, I gave a small, tired smile and said I was dealing with some personal matters. If they pressed, I said sometimes people are not who you think they are. Sympathy poured in. My boss told me to take extra time if I needed it. Coworkers dropped off casseroles and texted to ask what they could do. Even the company president pulled me aside to offer support. Through all of it, I kept my voice steady and my shoulders square. Polite, gracious, heartbroken, the perfect victim. Ashley unraveled more slowly, but the thread was clearly pulling loose. The human resources probe at her office made her jumpy. She took phone calls in a whisper and ended them the second I stepped into the room. Everything all right at work? I asked one evening, after she cut a call that sure sounded like Jason. Fine, she said, eyes on the counter instead of me. Just some office drama. Do you want to talk about it? No, it is nothing important. Her hands trembled as she poured wine. She checked the deadbolt twice. The circles under her eyes got darker. She started glancing over her shoulder like a person who hears footsteps that I could not hear. The final showdown came at her parents' place. They planned a little celebration brunch for the baby. Ashley's mother, Diane, went all in, fresh flowers on the table, a line of bright mimosas, enough food to feed 20 people. We are so proud of you both, Diane said as we settled in. 3 months old, already so alert. She will be brilliant, just like her daddy. I bounced the baby on my knee and nodded. She was beautiful. None of this was her fault. I cared about her in a way that hurt. Ashley's father, Martin, lifted his glass. To Michael and Ashley, and to our beautiful granddaughter. Glasses clinked. Smiles all around. It was the picture of a perfect family moment. That is when I reached into my jacket and set a document beside Ashley's plate, right between the eggs and the fruit. The room went still. Martin spoke first. What is this, son? DNA results, I said, calm as I could manage. I took a sip of my drink. It turns out your granddaughter is not my daughter. Silence. Diane's face went sheet white. Martin picked up the paper with shaking hands, his reading glasses sliding down his nose. His lips moved as he read. It says, he started, then stopped. His face flushed a hard red. 0% probability of paternity. I finished, steady and clear. Interesting, since Ashley told me our baby was conceived after my supposed failed vasectomy. All eyes swung to Ashley. She sat frozen, wide-eyed, like a deer that stepped into the road and finally saw the headlights. Ashley, Diane whispered. What is this? I can explain, Ashley stammered. Please do, I said. I am curious to hear it myself. The test must be wrong. These things happen all the time. Do not lie to us, Ashley, Martin said, voice rough. Not now? I am not lying. Then explain these, I said, laying down printed messages. I chose the ones that did not leave room to wiggle. I read them in the same voice a man uses to talk about the weather. He is too trusting and too stupid. The vasectomy was perfect timing. Diane began to cry. Martin looked like a blood vessel might burst. The table that had been set for celebration now felt like a courtroom. And the evidence, clean, simple, and brutal, did the talking for me. Who is he? Martin asked, voice tight enough to snap. Who is the father? Jason Miller, I said before Ashley could open her mouth. Her co-worker. They have been together for more than a year. What happened next was exactly what I expected. Martin started shouting. Diane began to sob into a napkin. Ashley's younger brother, Tyler, stared at his plate like he wished he could crawl under the table and disappear. How could you do this? Diane cried. How could you do this to Michael? To all of us? You do not understand, Ashley said, tears streaking her cheeks. It is complicated. It is not complicated, I said, standing with the baby in my arms. You wanted both things at once. The thrill with Jason and my paycheck, my roof, my name. You bet I was too trusting to notice. I leaned down and kissed Diane on the cheek. Thank you for the brunch. It was lovely. Then I walked out and let Ashley handle the storm she created. The fallout came fast. Within a month, Jason was fired for violations of company policy. He applied for unemployment and was denied for misconduct. His attorney filed a wrongful termination claim. Catherine Doyle showed the hearing officer the timeline, the messages, and the after-hours office photos. The claim died in minutes. The paternity case was straightforward. Jason tried to say he did not know the baby was his. The text messages said otherwise. The judge was not impressed. Mr. Miller, Judge Benton said during the hearing, looking over the exhibit binder. These conversations show that you knew about the pregnancy and that you took part in deceiving the plaintiff. You will pay child support retroactive to the date of birth, cover medical costs, and pay the plaintiff's legal fees. The monthly amount was calculated off Jason's prior compensation, which included the promotion he had just lost. I will not lie, I appreciated the symmetry. Money was only part of it. The scandal followed him to every interview. His professional profile filled with comments from people who had read the story. Words spread through the logistics world, and doors closed before he reached them. Within 6 weeks of the judgment, he moved back into his parents' house and took a warehouse position for about a third of what he used to make. Ashley's side looked worse. The divorce wrapped quickly on fault grounds for adultery. I kept the apartment, the car, and most of what we had built together. She got a stack of bills she could not afford and a reputation that walked into rooms before she did. Martin told her she was not welcome back in their home until she learned how to act like a decent person. Diane stopped answering her calls. Friends drifted off one by one. The few who tried to stay neutral picked a side eventually, and it was not hers. In the end, she landed in Jason's world, the basement at his parents' ranch house. Two people who thought they were clever ended up broke and unemployed, living like high school kids again under somebody else's roof. About 3 months after the divorce was final, I ran into them at the grocery store. They were in the markdown aisle with a fistful of coupons. Jason kept his eyes on the shelf labels. Ashley stared at me with a look that could have cut glass. She looked like she wanted to speak. I gave a polite nod and pushed my cart along. The last dust-up came at a downtown bar where I was having a drink with coworkers. Ashley's former best friend, Brittany, wobbled up to me with a glass in her hand. You know what you did to her was cruel, she said, words slurring. You ruined her life over one mistake. I set my beer down and turned to face her. One mistake? Brittany, she had an affair for over a year. She pushed me into a vasectomy so she could pass off another man's child as mine. She planned to let me pay for that child while she kept her boyfriend on the side. That is not one mistake. That is a year of planning and lying. But you embarrassed her in front of her family, she said. That was cruel. I told the truth, I said. If the truth is embarrassing, that belongs to the person who created it. She started to argue. I raised a hand. Let me ask you something. If your husband did the same thing to you, would you quietly accept it? Would you shrug, say, mistakes happen, and move on? Brittany did not answer. She stared at the floor, then drifted back toward the door. I picked up my beer, nodded to my crew, and let the quiet settle in. The truth had done the work. Brittany opened her mouth like she had a comeback ready, then shut it again. That is what I thought, I said, turning back to my drink. She stomped off toward the door. After that night, she never tried to defend Ashley to me again. Word travels fast when the facts are that plain. I did not feel guilty about any of it. Not one bit. Every hit Jason and Ashley took came from their own choices. I did not invent the consequences. I just made sure the right one showed up at the right time. 6 months after the divorce, I started dating. I met Sarah at a coffee shop near my office. She teaches kindergarten. Kind eyes. Laugh that makes you forget what you were worried about. Everybody in our small city already knew the broad strokes of my story. I told her the rest on our second date. She listened without flinching. You could have blown up and done something reckless, she said, stirring sugar into her coffee. Instead, you stayed calm and smart. You made sure they could not do the same damage to someone else. That stuck with me because it matched what I had been telling myself in the mirror. I was not chasing revenge for the thrill of it. I wanted the kind of justice that puts things back where they belong. A year later, Sarah and I sat at the same rooftop bar where I had toasted with Emily when the paperwork was finally done. The city lights spread out below us like a second sky. Sarah's hand was warm in mine. Do you ever regret how you handled it? She asked. I thought about it for a real minute. No, I said. They made their choices. I made sure there were consequences. My phone buzzed. A text from Emily. Saw Jason at the unemployment office today. Still looks rough. I turned the screen so Sarah could read it. She shook her head. Do you feel sorry for them at all? She asked. For the baby, yes, I said. She did not ask for any of this. For them, they are grown. They knew exactly what they were doing. Sarah squeezed my hand. You are a good man, Michael Carter. I am a man who does not like being played for a fool, I said. There is a difference. We stood to leave, and another text popped up from an unknown number. I recognized the fake sweet phrasing right away. I hope you are happy. You destroyed everything. I showed it to Sarah. She rolled her eyes. Even now, she thinks she is the victim, Sarah said. I typed one line and hit send. I did not destroy anything. I just revealed what was already there. Then I blocked the number and slipped the phone back into my pocket. On the walk to the car, Sarah asked, Do you think they will ever learn anything from this? Maybe Jason will, I said. He is weak, but not rotten to the core. He got pulled into something and let it spin out. And Ashley? Sarah asked. Ashley still believes the only mistake she made was getting caught. I said, people like that do not change. Time proved me right. 2 years later, Emily called. Ashley had been fired from another job after getting caught with a married coworker. Same story, different office. Some people never learn, Emily said. No, I told her. They do not. But I learned. I learned that trust is a fragile thing you do not hand out like flyers. I learned that people can hide a mean streak under pretty words and soft hands. Most of all, I learned that justice and revenge are not the same, even when they look like twins from a distance. I stood in my new place, bigger, more light, better neighborhood, and looked at the photo on my mantle. My real family smiled back at me from a backyard barbecue. Sarah with a smudge of sauce on her cheek, Emily with 2 thumbs up, my parents shoulder to shoulder. These are the people who earned their spot in my life with actions, not promises. The baby who is not mine is probably toddling by now, taking careful steps on the old carpet in Jason's parents' basement. I hope she grows up to be better than the 2 adults who started this. I hope she chooses honesty and loyalty, and the kind of love that does not come with a secret. But that is not my work anymore. My work is the life I am building with the people who chose me back. I poured a glass of the good whiskey, something I could not afford when I was paying for lies, and raised it in a quiet toast. To the future. to clean floors and clean hands, to facts that do not care about feelings. Justice landed. The truth came out. The guilty paid. And the man they called too trusting and too stupid turned out to be neither. I am just a man who believes actions should have consequences, and who had the patience and the backbone to see that they did.